Hey, friends, what's happening? Big Dog Ethan here. I'm super excited. Getting a little bit choked up already whenever it's getting ready to start recording. I have my good friend Annie O'Donohue from Sands Bar, St. Louis. How are you doing, Annie?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and honestly, my pleasure. I was just telling you before we started recording, last Monday at the Improv Shop was honestly one of the best nights of my spring break. And by the way, this included a trip to Nashville, which also has some wonderful nights too. But yeah, the Sandsbar thing was very interesting to me. I first heard about it because I'm very involved in the Improv Shop community. I graduated from their training program, and I also had the pleasure to take the owner teaches high school, or the owner teaches a class at my high school, and so I got to take his class in high school, and it was a fun time. One of those kind of classes that really got me interested in some kind of new thing that I never had a lot of interest in before. Um, but I also have to admit too, I never had a lot of interest in a non-alcoholic bar before I heard of Sands Bar before, Annie, because I'm a casual drinker. I just turned 21 about 6 months ago, and I'm in a family of six, and I think just about all of my siblings they either like beer or wine, or
Sure.
mixed drinks or something like that, right? It's a we come
It's the norm.
it's the norm. Drinking is the norm in our family. And but I'll also say this too, that there is a bit of a history of alcoholism in the family as well. And especially there are some family members that really troubles, and I think about it from time to time too.
Sure.
Um, so whenever I saw the concept of this bar, at first I was thinking, well, why would anyone want to go to a non-alcoholic bar? And then I think the thing that kind of got me thinking about the reasons why was you still were saying 21 and up. Now, I think maybe legally, I know you had things like non-alcoholic beer and all that, but part of me sees that as a way to sort of give that sort of adult, to sort of like to really, what's the word, guarantee that kind of an adult environment
Yes.
for for people who are looking for that kind of a night. Is that the intent as well, or is that more of a side effect? Just talk about that a
No.
little bit.
So the event that you went to, which just side note, I didn't realize I was sitting right behind you. And I
Oh,
myself am a very loud laugher and tend to laugh at things that not everyone else does. And you, I think, had like a similar vibe. I'm like, I like this guy. And then turns out it was you. So that was just a fun little detail.
oh,
So the reason, and I've gone back and forth because let's say you heard about Sands Bar 6 months ago and you were 20 years old. The age restriction would limit you. So I do struggle with that. But the reason I say that is A, so kids don't show up
mm,
because people hear alcohol free and they think, oh, it's for kids or it's,
mm,
all ages. And then another reason is like, we go for a bar atmosphere. So like the thought of like, I am 34. So the thought of someone my age maybe talking to an 18 or 19-year-old, I'm like, not
yeah,
cool. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
yeah, for
yeah,
for the most part, it's that exclusivity. It's normalizing that like a group of adults can get together, have that night out, and have all these great alcohol-free drinks.
yeah.
But actually, yeah, this past event was the first time we served non-alcoholic beer
Mm,
because our board is not on board with the NA beer as of right now, but
oh.
zero point 0 they're okay with.
Gotcha. Well, and I have to admit, I mean, my concern was just the taste. That's what I've heard. And I've had I had a non-alcoholic IPA before, and there's also a funny story about that. Because I was thinking, oh, it's non-alcoholic. Oh, yeah, my little sis, you want some? And of course, I bring that home. My dad's like, Ethan, why'd you buy non-alcoholic IPA for your sister? And I'm like, well, because like it's non-alcoholic. He's like, no, there's still some alcohol in there, and I'm like, oh. Okay. Well,
Yes.
okay.
Trace amounts. Yeah.
It's anyways, that so yeah, that was a great learning experience. But But I have to say, I mean that Moritz beer tasted great, honestly.
Right?
Yeah, it was some good, some great stuff. And part of me, so part of me was also thinking that night too, because I also, I tried to start an improv team here too. But I started thinking. I honestly think the Sands bar environment of that night would actually appeal to a lot more people in Arkadelphia because, for one, I think it was a dry county up until 2005. So there's a strong religious, what's the word? Reasoning, I guess.
Yeah.
Or there's a strong religious environment here, and I think that's part. I think that was part of it. But ultimately, they decided not be a dry county in 2005. But you can still kind of feel the effects of that at the Baptist University across the street. We've got like a weird Krusty Krab chum bucket kind of comparison or rivalry with those people. But yeah, they're so they just have like a very strict like no alcohol policy, like and I didn't even think they do like regular room checks if I'm not mistaken.
They do or they do not.
They do. That's what I've been told about room checks that have happened there. I was told by one friend, because I actually had one friend who I think she gotten caught with like some kind of like bottle of liquor or something like that during a room check. So here we do so we have like it's like one room check, I think, where the RAs come in to make sure the room isn't damaged. They're not going to look through your stuff or anything like that.
Right.
I think, yeah. Other than that, it's kind of a don't ask, don't tell kind of policy here, I think, even though officially, they say, oh yeah, no alcohol here, but it goes on every night. I mean, yeah.
People are people, like even I've had friends that went to Murray State. I believe that's a dry county. Yeah. And I think sometimes in those environments you have more drinking,
Yeah.
But it sounds like your RAs treat you like adults, which I think is very respectful, and they're realistic. People are going to drink.
Yeah.
People are curious,
Yeah, exactly. So, so anyways, I guess I was thinking that, maybe, I guess what I was thinking was Sands Bar may be might be like a sort of like maybe might be attractive to people, in areas like that. Have you thought to like maybe like expanding out to areas like that, dry counties where colleges, because it seems it would be easy for other pop-up events to happen if Sands Bar like reached out to those communities as well.
As far as expanding that, my head might explode if like physically we expanded, but I think it's a given demographic that of course is always welcome, similar to people who are in recovery or pregnant or, just again, for religious reasons or wellness reasons, they choose not to drink. So yeah, it's kind of like a guaranteed, like, oh, you'll be interested. I don't have to explain it. But, my goal is really to welcome folks of all walks of life, meaning like all people who have whatever relationship they have with alcohol, whether it's you've never had a drink in your life or, alcoholism runs in your family and you're struggling yourself. So yeah, I welcome everyone. And it's, you talk about improv, and the whole thing with improv is yes and it's like for you, someone who, casually drinks, it's like you said yes and to checking out Sands Bar and have like a really good night. And people are always so hesitant, like, oh, that doesn't sound the most appealing, but once they come and check it out, they have a lot of fun. And that was a great event.
Yeah. And especially to have experienced improvisers like Kevin McKernan and Andy Slowey. Mrs. Somebody is the team that was performing up there. I think they've been doing that for at least 10 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, they had an awesome show that they got to do while everyone was around there too. And and the other thing that another thing that I could also say about the event too, I probably spent the least amount of money at the improv shop because I go in there and I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm probably gonna need to like buy these drinks on my own, which is fine. I was kind of, budgeting out for that night. And I get up to the bar and I'm like, hey, can I, I'll have Mort's beer, and she's kind of hands me the beer, and I'm like, hey, like, am I paying? She's like, oh, I can't remember how loud I screamed. I think I screamed pretty loud whenever she was like, oh, it's free. I'm like, oh, it's free. Scared a couple of people.
Yeah, I try to make that clear, but I think people, including myself, I would be like, oh, I just have to pay for a drink. You pay for admission for this show. But I try to make it as accessible as possible, especially for the people who on a normal night out might have a drink or might have a few drinks. It's like, how willing are they to check out an event that A, they have to pay to get into, and B, to pay for a drink that I think alcohol-free cocktails, mocktails, what have you, they've always been associated like super sugary. So
Mm.
how likely is someone going to be to like try a bunch of drinks, and like how fun is it to be able to and not pay anything?
Yeah, it's sort of a one, sort of like a one ticket, one price admission kind of thing. Makes it a lot easier for people to
Yes.
sort of track. Because like I probably would not drop down money. I mean, maybe for the non-alcoholic beer, because I just find myself to be an avid beer taster. But
Right.
but other than that, yeah. And honestly, I wish I'd probably taken the opportunity to get more drinks there that night. But I was kind of in a rush to get back home to chat with the parents.
Next time.
Yeah, next time, exactly. Which, hey, speaking of which, next time, what's next for Sandspar STL?
Well, got a few things in the works, nothing set in stone yet. I've always wanted to do like a pub trivia or a karaoke night, which most people
Oh,
like coil at the thought of a sober karaoke night. So still working on that.
yeah.
But I just posted a survey or a poll on Instagram stories yesterday, and I gave four options. I said, what would you love to see? The first one was karaoke, second pub trivia, third was bingo. I went to like
Oh,
a meat bingo a
okay.
couple months ago, which was interesting. And then the fourth was like a paint and sip or a sip and paint, whatever those are called.
Oh,
Surprisingly, people wanted pub trivia and the paint and sip.
really?
So,
Okay. What what
you know,
what is paint and sip? I don't think I've ever heard of that.
so I feel like it was cool a few years ago, and it probably still is cool, but there's like on in Brentwood on the boulevard right across from Galleria, there's I think it's called painting with a twist. And
Hmm.
it's, you go and it's kind of like painting by numbers, but they
Oh,
serve
okay.
you a glass of wine or a cocktail. I'm not exactly sure because I've never done it.
Yeah.
But from what we found is that people like need something to connect to each other. So like why improv was so great is like you can talk about the show, or like I just feel like
Yeah.
laughter like brings people together.
Oh, absolutely.
Because in past events, where it's just like get together and hang out, it's a little awkward, and like, at bars it's a little easier to talk to someone once you've had a drink or two.
Hmm.
But to an extent you're still just hanging with your people. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
uh, trying to figure out our next step, and
Yeah.
trying not to, I get so excited and want to have events like every week.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
hopefully, what is it, March, end of April, beginning of May, we'll have our next one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be not yeah, just yeah, that would be all. I'm certainly excited to hear what's the next event, because obviously I want to have another Moritz beer, but
Yay! You can
yeah,
get them at Total Wine. That's where I
oh,
found them.
really? Total Wine. Okay. I don't know if we
Yes,
have. I don't know if I've ever seen a Total Wine down around Arkadelphia. Maybe if I go up to Little Rock, maybe I might find one up there.
probably.
Yeah, but anyways, that's yeah. I mean that's all yeah, that's all. Yeah, and that's all wonderful. And oh man, I had a thought and it just poof went out of my
I hate
brain.
that.
Yeah, this is also why I like to do the editing too. So part of me felt a little bit guilty about going to the whenever I went to the show initially, because I actually did have a beer before I went in there. You've talked about like the you've talked a lot about how that environment is inclusive, and that's actually one thing that I love about you stress that at the end of the show, with Kevin, with Kevin and Andy up there. I thought that was a really great way to sort of affirm everything that they've been doing on stage as well. Do you as long as like people aren't like being rough, like, or as long as like people are, maintaining the environment that you're trying to create there and that you're trying to affirm, like, is it a thing that is it still like no I guess, is there no judgment if someone's coming in there with like even just like the scent of beer on their breath, like or something like that? Because I always felt like part of me felt like maybe I was kind of violating the intention of the night by doing that, but part of me was like, well, I knew I was also like doing my best to, maintain
Yeah.
the integrity of the event. And so I guess, yeah, I think that's why I was like hesitating to ask that question. There was a little bit of vulnerability there and saying like, oh, like,
Yeah, no. No, I'm
yeah,
glad you asked. So I haven't really had a situation that I've had to address. I will say, like, if someone were to show up, obviously inebriated,
yeah,
wasted, very visible, I would probably say, hey, I think tonight's not the night. We'd love
mm,
to have you next time. Let me know if I can help in any way. But it's not like I'm doing a breathalyzer at the door. Of
yeah,
course you are welcome, and you had a beer before, and
yeah,
I can't stop that. And again, I'm realistic. I know that people, not everyone's a non-drinker.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, as long as you're not obviously wasted,
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah. And yeah, and I guess that was like, the weird way I wanted to like sort of emphasize like what I loved about, what I also loved about the night too is just like how inclusive that space was. I think the Improv Shop, I think they've done a great job of honestly, I feel like that their little asterisks now, it's almost become like a nice little beacon. I don't know if you,
Right.
yeah, I don't know if you like, got to see like what happened over COVID, throughout COVID, but, uh, right at the start of COVID, there was a person named Caitlin Forks who like posted like a picture of like I think what did she done? That's right. She went up to the Improv Shop and just took a picture of that sign that said you're okay. Promise with and I think is there I can't remember if there's an asterisk there. I have the picture goes by goes by my background on my computer, but I don't think
Oh, I
there's an
love that.
asterisk there. Yeah. And I remember because like yeah, Kevin also showed it. Kevin had also showed it to the class too. Whenever or not the class, he showed it to us whenever we started performing for that for our improv show in 2019. It's kind of like the last. It's kind of like that last big thing that one of the last big things I got to do at SLU before I graduated. But I remember he showed us that picture and it was just it was anyway. I can tell that little sign that says you're okay promise means a lot to people because throughout the pandemic, after this person Caitlin Forks started taking this picture. Drove up there and just took this picture. Everyone started doing that on their own. They just like went up there,
Oh, I didn't
posted.
see that.
Yeah. And then I think then there was another challenge too, where people, if people saw an asterisk in like their everyday life, so like I think mine was I actually had a copy of Slaughterhouse 5 with the asterisk on the on the binding, so I took a picture of that and like I put it on. Anyways, it was a way that like people stayed in touch throughout the pandemic, and to also see that after people and keep in mind too, there was also a lot of people who donated to the Improv Shop too to keep them afloat throughout the pandemic.
Yes.
To see that whenever I heard that Kevin and Andy had actually like donated their space to
Yeah.
sort of help show off your business that night, I think it also shows that they are giving back to the community as well, which I think is also another thing that made that night so awesome, was to kind of see the community kind of getting at trying showing up, but also showing up in different ways now, right? I'd always saw the Improv Shop as like an alcoholic bar, and I dreamed of my first drink being at the Improv Shop. Granted, I got a much better thing actually, because my sister got married the night before I turned 21, so I got to have drink. Yeah, so
Wait, so had you been at the Improv Shop since you turned 21?
yes, I have
Okay, I was
actually.
gonna say, was
Yes.
your first drink at the Improv Shop a non-alcoholic beer?
Psych.
The universe did something there.
Yeah. No.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're okay, promise. For me, I've taken a couple levels of training. I haven't graduated from the Improv Shop, but when you're up to an improv and you think you're okay, promise, it's like you're all right. I know that I probably represent the bell curve and I can get in my head about all sorts of things. And like, if you just, it's so applicable to all areas of life. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I think this person doesn't like me, or I think that person's talking about me, or whatever. And it's like, you're okay. I promise.
I,
It's like, Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
as someone who, so I'm going to say this right now actually. I've started covering like more political topics on the radio, and I actually, for better,
Wow.
it's a for better or for worse kind of thing, right? Because I've also gotten a few complaints. Some people haven't liked the takes, and I encourage you, if you want to go check them out yourself, you can. But that's it's also like that mentality that's like that's really helped me like feel comfortable doing that. I started like reading a lot more. It's also why I've got truth. I feel like this is a weird combination. I've got Truth and Comedy right here, which is a book just all about comedy and all that. Then right up here, I have a book called Manufacturing Consent. I actually felt kind of first. I think it was like the one of the first times I came back to the improv shop after COVID. I had like read this book and I started rambling about it to Kevin. I think to the point where he was just kind of like, okay. And he knows I do that sometimes too, because I can get very neurotic about the things
He's
that
great.
he's
He
awesome.
welcomes
Yes.
neuroses. He welcomes all of that, which is
Yeah.
they foster a lot of community there. And I
Yeah.
saw the consent book. I was like, I can't see what it says, but I really appreciate that he's got a book about consent.
Yeah.
I
It's not.
appreciated that.
Yeah. It's Oh yeah, absolutely. That's
Is that
yeah.
Fast and the Furious
Uh,
next to it?
Next. Oh, this one or
No, the other to the right. Up.
this?
Yeah.
Oh, this is Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
It looks like from my angle, it looks like a Fast and the Furious.
Really? Oh my gosh. Maybe I got to get this thing up a little bit closer then. So the way that I have this position right now, it can either be like at this distance, or I could like, rotate. I have to like
Right.
rotate the arm, and then it would be like right up in my face. I don't know which one would look more appealing, so I kind of like showing off. I was very proud
I
of this
like
little.
it. It
Thank you.
shows personality.
Thank you. Thank you. But of course, I have to say, I mean, the whole thing that you've been doing at Sans Bar, I think it shows a lot of personality as well too. I think not only is it something that's like inviting people who are just curious, but it also acts as a safe space as well, and that's another thing that I saw improv for as well. I think another thing that Kevin, Andy, and everyone there at the improv shop do a really good job at is maintaining a safe space environment. There are even some talk show hosts that I listen to like almost religiously who have like denounced they even if they're like very left leaning, they'll still like denounce the idea of a safe space because it seems kind of insular to them. And I wholeheartedly disagree with it. I think there are for things like improv, or for things like, say, if especially if you're creating like a non-alcoholic bar where you may have some people who are going there because a similar environment with the alcohol may make them feel kind of uneasy. For them, that is a safe space.
Right.
And
100%.
for them, I see a mental health purpose for that. Now, I will say, yes, if you want to have like something like a political debate environment, yeah, that's a different. I would say I've seen instances of that, of where people try to claim a safe space in an environment where that really wasn't the intent of it. But that being said, safe spaces are still, I think they have their purpose up, and I like the fact that both you, Kevin at the improv shop, we're kind of working together to do that. I think that's it's kind of like a power. It felt like a power. I don't know, kind of like Avengers assembling. I think is a good way to describe the night.
Love
Yeah.
that. And here's the weird thing is that so our first pop-up was March of 19, I think. And
Oh.
after that, then we became the owners of Sans Bar St. Louis, whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to have it at the improv shop. And this is before I even took any classes. I had gone to a show, and I'm like, oh my God, I love Kevin and Andy.
Mm.
So Andy and I we went to the same grade school.
Oh, really?
Now
Okay.
he didn't know who I was because, I'm younger than him. I know his wife. She was a couple years older than me. But we met for coffee, and he had heard about Sans Bar. I think he had heard me on a podcast.
Hmm.
And it's like the universe, like everything just collided. And they donated their space, their time, like they went above and beyond. They're good people.
Yeah, absolutely. So Andy, I think what I want to do here, because I think I've said all I can say about Sans Bar, and I've asked all the questions that I can think to ask, even though it's only been like a half hour. But I'm sure a lot of people can find info about Sans. Oh, actually, one more thing, Sans Bar. So it got its start It seems it got started in Austin. Do you know like this, just like the story of how Sands Bar like got started in
Yeah.
Austin?
Oh, yes. I know. I can talk your ear off about that. So, Sandsbar was founded in Austin, Texas by a guy named Chris Marshall, who still runs it. It started out as just pop-up events, now as a brick and mortar, but he quit drinking at age 23 or 24 and ended up, in the mental health world as a counselor, I believe at a treatment center, maybe a detox facility, but working with people who were trying to quit drinking. And he noticed time and time again that like they had nowhere to go for nightlife. You could go to
Mhm.
coffee shops, you could do this, you could do that, but it wasn't, out, you want to feel like a fancy person having like a fun drink. That happened, or he noticed that, and as South by Southwest is in Austin, Texas.
Oh yeah.
And a few years back, I believe, a drunk driver drove into a crowd
Oh
or
God.
killed someone.
Oh yeah. I forgot. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't see where you were going with that. I was like, oh, so because I saw a great interview. Oh, okay. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yes. And so I think all of those factors kind of culminated, and he decided to, do these pop-ups. He had no bartending experience. He had no event planning experience. I mean, he was in the mental
Yeah.
health world at a nonprofit or whatever. And so he created it and had been around for like a year or two. And I reached out to him. I had just moved back to St. Louis from New York and reached out and was like, I was still working remotely for the nonprofit in New York. I was running their social media. And I said, hey, when are you coming to New York? And he was like, let's get on a phone call. And I was like, well, that was
Oh
easy. And
yeah.
I met with PreventEd, formerly NCADA, and introduced them. And he said, oh, well, I just happened to be going on a national tour. So March of 2019, he came here, and we're the only other Stance bar. There used to be one in Kansas City. But yeah,
Hmm.
so it's just the two of us, and he
Wow.
is now going on his second national tour.
Whoa.
Yeah, so actually this Friday he's going to be in St. Louis.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah, I don't know if I can. So
Yeah.
he's making his stop Friday night. He'll be here and
Okay.
going to a bunch of other cities as well. But
Wow.
yeah, it's
See,
exciting. It's
what's so St. Louis might be the closest. What do you know? What's closest place he's going to around Arkadelphia? Or are you all are you allowed to not announce that yet either? Or
um I'm blanking. I know he's going to Seattle, which is not close. Atlanta.
Atlanta? Yeah, that might. I
I
think.
mean, I don't know how close that is. It's
Yeah, that's
that
probably more.
way.
Yeah, St. Louis is probably closer.
Chicago, but again, that's going the other way.
Yeah.
Let me get back to you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I'll be sure to include like a link to the website for sure, like on the Substack page, so that way people can go look at all the info that they have on their website too, to see if maybe they do have an event popping up near you. Oh, and so you've mentioned the idea of like pop up events. Are there any plans to like? So I don't. Do they already have like a non-alcoholic bar in like Austin, or are there any plans to establish like some kind of like permanent like non-alcoholic bar?
So he does have a space in Austin. As far as it's open like Friday, Saturday, or
Mm.
maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday. However, non-alcoholic bars are opening all over the country.
Oh,
There's one
really?
in St. Charles here. It's called the Mocktail Lounge.
Okay.
Pretty sure they're open 7 days a week. New York, a couple of years ago, they had Listen Bar.
Okay.
Now, there's a couple others, and they even have like a whole alcohol-free liquor store. I mean, I don't know what
Oh,
else you would call it. An
yeah, yeah,
alcohol-free drink store where you can get, AF spirits and a beer, all
yeah,
sorts of stuff. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if something pops up, especially Arkadelphia. Did I say
yeah,
that right? Yeah.
yeah. Arkadelphia.
Like you
Yep.
said, it formerly, 17 years ago was a dry county. I can't believe 2005 was 17 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also with, like the Baptist school. And I think a lot of schools, I think we'll see, something popping up. But
Mm.
I hope to have a brick and mortar one day. We'll see.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'd certainly stop by there every now and then just for one of those Moritz beers. Maybe hey, maybe make it exclusive. You know, well, actually, I'm
Right?
not. I'm maybe I don't know. I'm not. So I say make it exclusive, but then again, I'm also one of those people who, you know, I like playing video games on PC because, like, you know, you it's like you can get just about every game, any game on there nowadays. But
What do
I,
you mean make it exclusive?
Oh, so make it like so you know how like with so like with Nintendo video games, like so like I have the Legend of Zelda video games. You can only get them on Nintendo consoles. That's what makes Nintendo consoles valuable, because if you want to play Legend of Zelda, you can only get it there. But
I see.
yeah, I guess I didn't know. Is Moritz Beer, is that a thing that, like, do you have like a partnership with them, or are they like a smaller, or no?
No,
No?
so they're from Spain.
Oh, they're from
So
Spain. Oh, okay.
we were gonna serve Hairless Dog. They're based in Minnesota,
Oh,
and they're
okay.
a zero point 0.0. So craft non-alcoholic beer is a market that has just exploded. I don't know if you've heard of Well Being.
Will be.
They
Oh,
make an
yes. Yeah.
NAIPA. They're
Yes.
great. We can't serve it yet because
Mm.
it has that, those trace amounts of alcohol, but
Mm.
maybe one day, fingers
Yeah.
crossed. So it's just like the market is exploding. And so I wanted
Okay.
to support Hairless Dog, but I waited kind of to the last minute to get it, and Total Wine was out. Randall's had it, but I went there after. So
Okay.
I'm like, oh, Moritz, I don't know how you actually say it. I'm like, that looks kind of good. Let me check out
Yeah.
the reviews, great reviews. It kind of reminded me of Corona. So I bought a
Oh.
bunch of that and Estrella Galicia, which is
Oh, okay.
from Barcelona.
Yeah. And
I think Maurice is from Madrid.
and yeah, I'm just remembering now. You had actually meant, I forgotten now. You had mentioned that I could get Moritz Beer at like a Total Wine. So yeah, I don't. Anyways,
Darn it, we can't be exclusive.
yeah. Well,
But maybe there's another brand out there. I mean, I would love to have our own brand of zero point 0.0 beer.
yeah. Hey, maybe. Yeah. Who knows? Because I know of, like, I certainly know of so the community radio station that I interned at. Uh, I haven't spoken to the guy there in a while, but I'm technically still a volunteer at the radio station there. He runs his radio station right next door to his own pizza shop that's also got its own beer.
Oh,
Yeah, and he was telling me about how he made his own recipe and all this stuff. I don't know. Maybe he would be interested. I'll have to. I want to ask him and see if
yeah.
I wonder if he knows how to make a non-alcoholic beer. Now, personally, I will say I like the beer there at it's called Squeeze Box, by the way. But it's
Is that
SQZ.
like a Grateful Dead reference?
I've
Isn't
never
that
I've never listened to Grateful Dead. Admittedly, I guess I should. There's a lot of music I still have yet to listen to. I kind of
there's
like.
plenty of time?
Yeah, I know. I just there's so right now I'm still trying to get through all of Run the Jewels stuff, which actually so I don't know if you
I've never heard any of, I don't think I've heard any of their music.
Oh yeah, well they've actually got a little bit of history with St. Louis, because I actually did a presentation with them, or a presentation about them in my media criticism class. So in 2014, Run the Jewels 2 had just come out. I wish I had that one on CD. I have not. I still, like, bought the actual. I was able to, like, get it on Bandcamp, where you can, like, download, like, the high quality files. But anyways, Run the Jewels 2 had just come out. Phenomenal album, especially it released right around a couple of months after the murder of Michael Brown in Ferguson. And the night that the grand jury made their decision, to not indict Officer Daryl Wilson, Run the Jewels was performing at the Ready Room there in actually there in the Grove. It's just down the and it's been rebranded now to something else because they closed, unfortunately, after COVID. And Killer Mike.
I love Killer Mike.
Yeah, Killer Mike is phenomenal. He gave this speech after he'd heard that horrible news, and it 8 years later, after also like having grown up in in an environment where people were at least very questioning people were very questioning of the idea that Daryl Wilson murdered Michael Brown. So seeing one of those speeches, really seeing what Killer Mike had to say that night.
I would like to say rest in peace to Michael Brown. He will never get to see the next phase of his life. I would like to give all thoughts and prayers to the people who are out there peacefully protesting. And I also give thoughts and prayers for the people who could not hold that anger in, because riots are only the language of the unheard. We usually come on to Queen's champion, and I just got to tell you today that, man, no matter how much we do it, no matter how much we get shit together, shit comes along that kicks you on your ass and you don't feel like a champion. So tonight, I got kicked on my ass when I listened to that prosecutor. And I'm gonna tell you motherfuckers got me today. I knew it was coming. I knew when the fucking Eric Holder decided to resign, I knew it wasn't going to be good. But I gotta tell them, you motherfuckers got me today. You kicked me on my ass today because I have a 20-year-old son and I have a 12-year-old son, and I'm so afraid for them. You motherfuckers on the other side of CNN and on the other side of Fox, and you motherfuckers who we vote for and who control our lives, you motherfuckers got me today. You got me. When I stood in a bus and I cried and I hugged my friend and he came and he hit me and he hugged me right there, I said, these motherfuckers got me today. When I stood in front of my wife and I hugged her and I cried like a baby, I said, these motherfuckers got me today. But with that said, you motherfuckers will not own tomorrow. We will not live in your fear. We will not accept your changes. We're not going to keep playing that race card, because we know you don't value my skin, and we know you do value his. But you know what? We're friends, and nothing is going to devalue that. We understand. Before I came out here, there was no peace in my heart, and I wanted to walk out to burn this motherfucker down. Burn this motherfucker down. But I gotta tell you, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and something said, just look for something Martin King might have said. So I Googled Martin King, and Wikipedia popped up, and he was 39 years old when you motherfuckers killed him. He was the same age as I am, the same age as Elle. He was a young man when they killed him. But I can promise you today, if I die when I walk off this stage tomorrow, I'm going to let you know this. It is not about race. It is not about class. It is not about color. It is about what they killed him for. It is about poverty. It is about greed. And it is about a war machine. It is about a war machine that uses you as a battery. So I might go tomorrow. I might go the day after. But the one thing I want you to know, it is us against the motherfucking machine. Let's go. Let's go.
I have heard them, now that you say that.
Yeah, and actually they had a so Killer Mike's based out of Atlanta, LP's based out of New York. I've been trying to listen to both of their albums. I got about halfway because it turned it off pretty late at night, then I got really tired. It was so good though. LP, I love LP because he takes a lot of inspiration from who is it, the site, because I have Blade Runner 2049, Dick, God, God, the guy who inspired Blade Runner, he like wrote the Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. I'm trying to think of it. Philip K. Dick. That's it. Philip K. Dick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so LP takes a lot of inspiration from Philip K. Dick. So when you listen to his first album, like it's almost like this cartoonish graphic novel. The artwork on the album just looks like this like cartoonish version of some kind of cyberpunk dystopia. And that's kind of the sounds that he likes to use on his album as well. Run the Jewels, they sort of Run the Jewels. It's Killer Mike and LP, so LP does a lot of the producing on it. So those sounds, those kind of like cyberpunk sounds, actually has a lot of influence over the music that they make. So that's one reason why I'm also just a huge fan of their music, because and even just like the themes that they cover too. So like Run the Jewels 4, I mean, Killer Mike also give a shout out to the guy who wrote this book, Manufacturing Consent. It's a book by a guy named Noam Chomsky and Edward S. Herman. Chomsky is like the second. And sorry, I'm going on a ramble now about Run the Jewels.
Fine. I love it.
Thanks. So Chomsky is like the second most cited scholar in the past 80, 90 years. I will say this before I say anything more about Chomsky. I actually did learn that like he does. So he's gone on record to have like denied some, I forget what the exact war crime was, but he's denied the existence of a certain genocide that happened in an Eastern European country. I'm forgetting the name now. That was something that I recently learned, but so far that's the only take he's given that I've been like, whoa, you're off base there. A lot of the work that he's done in academia has actually had a lot of influence on computer science as well. Let's talk about this. First he started off as a linguist at Harvard. It was MIT. He started as a linguist at MIT in like the 50s, and he published this text. Yeah, he published this text where it was like about basically separated the idea of like he basically showed how it's possible to create sentences that are grammatically correct but mean absolutely nothing. And so there's a sentence that he used. It's like a colorless. It's like a colorless green clouds furiously sleep or something like that. And grammatically it makes sense. You have a verb, you have a subject and everything. I might be butchering it, the exact line, but basically he shows that you can have grammatically correct sentences that mean absolutely nothing. And so whenever he showed you can like sort of manipulate the grammar of languages to mean other things, well, that had a huge innovation for computer science, because it showed that you could take zeros and ones and assign meaning to words.
Huh.
And yeah, so
wow.
Yeah. But after the 60s, 70s, and 80s, Chomsky becomes a lot more politically involved. He denounced, became very active in Vietnam War protests and all that stuff. In 1988, he put out this work with him and Edward S. Herman. It's basically this meta-analysis of mainstream media reporting on certain global events, and it shows that these mainstream media outlets manipulated coverage on those events to favor the interests of the U.S. government. So in this, I think the best, I hate using the word best, I think the clearest example of like sort of like how you would like prove something like that, I think the Iraq War, just so many lies were put out by both CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News. And the ones he goes into, we actually talked at the school I went, high school I went to. Someone had mentioned Saint Oscar Romero, and this book also talks about the reporting on on his murder. It was woefully underreported in comparison to similar events in U.S. enemy territories. It was a very powerful read for me at the time, and that's kind of why and it kind of has a lot to do with what I do here at the Kennel, because a lot of people see the internet as a as a possible solution against the problems that Chomsky and Herman point out in this book, and in having these independent media organizations. And to be clear, I've written about this too. Independent media organizations themselves have their faults. I mean, the fact that like I have such a strong personal connection with you while I'm talking with you right now, yeah, that's going to show a little bias. I think the best we can do is just be as honest as we can about that bias, and hope that people will listen with hope people can understand that we're coming at them with the best faith that we can muster and the best intentions.
Exactly. It would be so boring if we didn't have a connection, right?
Exactly.
No one would want to listen.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I'd hate to sever this awesome connection that I'm making with you right now. But it is 1 p.m. I do need to go talk to Paul.
Go.
Yeah, this has been an awesome connection I've gotten to make with you, Annie O'Donohue. And where can people find more info about Sans Bar?
Yeah, so it's super easy, sansbarstl.com, or we're on Instagram and Facebook at sansbarstl.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, thank you so much, Annie O'Donohue. This was so much fun. Thank you so much for doing all that you're doing, and let me know if there's anything else I can do to help you out, okay?